Welcome to my channel. Before you watch another English lesson, let me ask you one question that could change the way you learn forever. What if I told you that the only thing standing between you and fluent English is not your grammar, not your vocabulary, not your accent, but one simple habit that almost every successful English speaker has mastered? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear has helped thousands of learners break their fear and finally start speaking with confidence. If you've ever understood English but couldn't speak it, when the moment arrived, then this lesson was made especially for you. Hello, my friends. I'm Sam, and today we're going to discover something incredibly simple yet unbelievably powerful: speaking English word by word. Many people believe that speaking English means creating long, perfect sentences without making a single mistake. They think fluency belongs only to people with perfect grammar or advanced vocabulary. But the truth is very different. Real fluency begins with one word, then another, and then another. That's exactly how my journey started. When I first began learning English, I froze every time I tried to speak. I knew many words. I could understand conversations, watch movies with subtitles, enjoy songs, and even read short stories. But whenever someone looked at me and asked a simple question in English, everything disappeared from my mind. My heart started beating faster, my mouth refused to move, and silence became my answer. Maybe you've experienced that feeling too. If you have, I want you to know something important. You are not alone. I stood exactly where you are today. I believed something was wrong with me because I understood English but couldn't use it. Every failed conversation made me feel weaker. Every silent moment made me question whether I would ever become fluent. Then, one ordinary day, I looked at myself and said, "Stop chasing perfection. Just speak one word." Those simple words completely changed my life. That evening, I sat quietly in my room and looked around. Instead of worrying about grammar, I simply named everything I could see: bed, pillow, window, door, chair, table, light, curtain. I said each word slowly and clearly. At first, it felt strange, even a little embarrassing. I laughed at myself, but I kept going. Something amazing was happening without me even realizing it. My mouth was learning how English felt. My brain was creating new connections. My confidence was growing one tiny step at a time. The next day, I added short sentences. This is my bed. This is my chair. My pillow is soft. The window is open. Slowly, those little sentences became natural. I wasn't memorizing English anymore. I was living it. That's the secret most learners never discover. English isn't built with giant sentences. It's built with small moments repeated every day. So, if you're listening right now and thinking, "I understand English, but I can't speak it," take a deep breath. You don't have to become fluent today. You only have to speak one word today. Tomorrow, you'll speak two. Next week, you'll speak 10. Little by little, your confidence will grow stronger than your fear. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. I can speak English. Good. Again. I can speak English. Now say, I can speak English word by word. Excellent. Did you notice what just happened? You spoke English. You didn't need perfect grammar. You didn't need difficult vocabulary. You simply opened your mouth and spoke. Every fluent speaker started exactly the same way. Think about a baby learning to speak. A baby doesn't begin with long speeches or perfect pronunciation. The first sounds are simple: mama, papa, ball, milk. Everyone celebrates those tiny victories because they understand that every small word is building something much bigger. So, why don't you celebrate yourself when you speak your first English words? Every word is progress. Every sentence is courage. Every attempt is proof that you're becoming the English speaker you've always wanted to be. Years ago, my English teacher gave me advice that seemed impossible. She said, "Don't think in your own language, think in English." I remember wondering how anyone could ever do that. It sounded like magic. But later I discovered that thinking in English doesn't begin with full sentences. It begins with one simple word. When you see an apple, think apple. When you see a car, think car. When you look at the sky, think sky. Little by little, your brain starts creating an English world, and before you know it, speaking becomes something natural instead of something frightening. And today, that same journey begins with you. One word, one sentence, one brave step at a time. When I discovered this simple method, I made one promise to myself. No matter how busy I was, no matter how tired I felt, I would speak at least a few English words every single day. Some mornings I woke up full of energy, and practicing felt exciting. Other mornings I wanted to stay in bed, and my motivation disappeared before the day even started. But on those difficult days, I remembered one important rule: consistency always beats perfection. I didn't need an hour. I didn't need a perfect lesson. I only needed one small step. So I looked around my room again and quietly named everything I could see: mirror, toothbrush, towel, water, soap. Then I smiled and added short sentences. I am brushing my teeth. The water is cold. The mirror is clean. These tiny conversations slowly became part of my daily life. Without realizing it, I was teaching my brain to think naturally in English instead of translating every word from my own language. That small habit changed everything. Suddenly, English wasn't just something inside a textbook anymore. It became part of my morning, my afternoon, and my evening. When I cooked dinner, I described every action. I am cutting vegetables. The pan is hot. The rice smells good. I am hungry. When I walked outside, I looked at the world differently. The sky is blue. The birds are flying. The street is busy. The weather feels warm today. Every object became my teacher, and every moment became a speaking lesson. I didn't wait for the perfect classroom because life itself became my classroom. There were still difficult days, of course. Sometimes I forgot words. Sometimes I mixed tenses. Sometimes I stopped in the middle of a sentence because I couldn't remember the next word. But instead of feeling embarrassed, I learned to smile. I realized that every mistake was teaching me something valuable. Every mistake meant I was trying, and every time I tried, I became stronger. That's something I want you to remember forever. Mistakes are not your enemy. Silence is. If you keep silent because you're afraid of making mistakes, you'll never discover how much you're capable of saying. But if you speak, even with mistakes, you give yourself the chance to improve. One afternoon, I decided to challenge myself. I walked to a small cafe and promised I would order my drink completely in English. As I stood in line, my hands were shaking. My heart beat faster with every step toward the counter. I kept repeating my sentence quietly in my mind, hoping I wouldn't forget it. Finally, the waiter smiled and asked, "What would you like?" For a second, my mind became empty again. Then I took a deep breath and simply answered, "I like coffee with no milk." The waiter smiled kindly and replied, "So you'd like a black coffee?" I smiled back and confidently said, "Yes, a black coffee, please." That conversation lasted less than a minute, but it became one of the biggest victories of my learning journey. I walked out of that cafe feeling taller, stronger, and happier because I had spoken instead of staying silent. That's the feeling I want every one of you to experience. Confidence doesn't appear before you speak. Confidence appears because you speak. Many learners believe they need confidence first, but the truth is exactly the opposite. Action creates confidence. Every sentence you speak becomes proof that you can do more than you believed yesterday. So, don't wait until you feel ready. Start speaking now, exactly as you are. Maybe your pronunciation isn't perfect yet. Maybe your grammar still needs practice. Maybe your vocabulary is small. None of that matters as much as your willingness to open your mouth and try. Remember, every fluent speaker once struggled with simple words too. Nobody was born speaking perfect English. Every expert began as a beginner who refused to quit. I also discovered another powerful habit that made a huge difference. Whenever I learned a new word, I immediately used it in several different sentences. If I learned the word beautiful, I didn't simply write it in a notebook. I looked outside and said, "The sky is beautiful." Then I looked at a flower and said, "This flower is beautiful." Later, I listened to music and smiled, saying, "This song is beautiful." Every time I repeated the word in a different situation, it became easier to remember. Soon, it wasn't just a word I had memorized. It became a word that belonged to me. That's exactly how vocabulary grows naturally. Don't collect words like decorations on a shelf. Bring them into your everyday life. Speak them, feel them. Repeat them until they become part of your own voice. Every small practice session is building a stronger version of you. Every word you speak is another brick in the bridge leading toward confidence, fluency, and the English speaking life you've always imagined. And believe me, that bridge is growing stronger every single day. As I continued practicing every day, something incredible started happening without me even noticing it. English slowly stopped feeling like a subject I had to study and started becoming a part of my everyday life. I no longer needed to force myself to think of every single word because the words began arriving naturally. My fear didn't disappear overnight, but it became smaller every time I chose courage instead of silence. One morning, while walking through the park, I decided to practice speaking again. I looked around and quietly described everything I saw. The trees are green, the birds are singing, children are playing, the air feels fresh today, the sun is shining. They were simple sentences, but every sentence made me feel stronger. I realized that fluency isn't created by complicated grammar lessons alone. It's created by thousands of small moments like these, repeated every single day until speaking becomes a habit instead of a challenge. Many of my students often ask me, "Sam, how can I remember new vocabulary?" My answer is always the same. Don't just memorize words, live with them. If today's new word is happy, don't leave it inside your notebook. Use it everywhere. I am happy today. My family is happy. Happy people smile. This song makes me happy. The more you connect a word with your real life, the easier your brain remembers it. Words become memories instead of information. That's the difference between studying English and living English. When I was still a beginner, I loved watching English videos with subtitles. But I had one rule that changed everything. Every time I heard a sentence that sounded natural, I paused the video and repeated it several times. Sometimes I repeated one sentence 10 or 15 times until it felt comfortable. I wasn't trying to sound exactly like the speaker. I was training my mouth to become familiar with the rhythm of English. Every language has its own music, and the only way to learn that music is by speaking it out loud. Reading silently helps your mind, but speaking trains your whole body. Your lips, your tongue, your breathing, your confidence, they all improve together. Of course, I still made mistakes. Sometimes I forgot an article. Sometimes I used the wrong verb. Sometimes I mixed present and past tense in the same sentence. But I stopped allowing those mistakes to stop me. Instead, I corrected myself and continued talking. That's exactly what children do when they learn their first language. They don't quit after one mistake. They keep trying until speaking becomes natural. One day I met a young learner during an online class. She smiled nervously and said, "Sam, I understand English, but I cannot start a conversation." I told her, "Let's make it easy. You say one sentence, then I'll say one sentence." She looked unsure, but she agreed. She softly said, "I am a student." I smiled and answered, "I am a teacher." She said, "I like English." I replied, "I love English." Little by little, her voice became louder. Her smile became brighter. Within a few minutes, she was speaking naturally without worrying about every tiny mistake. That moment reminded me that confidence grows through action, not waiting. Sometimes people laugh when I tell them that I used to talk to myself every day. They ask, "Didn't that feel strange?" Maybe it did at first, but it also became one of the best teachers I ever had. When you talk to yourself, there is no pressure, no judgment, and no fear of embarrassment. You are free to experiment, repeat, and improve at your own pace. I stood in front of my mirror almost every evening saying simple sentences. "My name is Sam. I am learning English. Today was a good day. Tomorrow will be even better." Those conversations weren't just language practice, they were confidence practice. After several weeks, I noticed something wonderful. I wasn't translating every sentence inside my head anymore. The English words simply appeared. My brain and my voice finally started working together instead of fighting each other. That feeling is difficult to describe, but once you experience it, you'll never forget it. It feels light, natural, and exciting. I also discovered another helpful habit. Whenever I couldn't find someone to practice with, I used my phone to record my voice. The first recording surprised me. I thought my pronunciation sounded strange, and I almost deleted it. But instead, I listened carefully and realized something important. Every recording showed me what I could improve. A few weeks later, I compared my new recordings with the old ones, and I could hear real progress. My pronunciation had improved. My pauses became shorter. My confidence sounded stronger. That's why I want to give you a small challenge. Every evening, spend just 2 minutes recording yourself. Introduce yourself, describe your day, talk about your dreams. Don't worry if it's simple. Every recording is another step toward fluency. Remember, becoming fluent isn't about speaking perfectly, it's about speaking consistently. Courage grows every time you choose to use your voice. So, let's make a promise together. Starting today, we will speak English every single day. Maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for 10, it doesn't matter how long. What matters is that we never stop. Language grows exactly like a plant. With daily care, patience, and belief, it becomes stronger than you ever imagined. And one day you'll realize that the person who was once afraid to speak has become someone who speaks naturally, confidently, and proudly. One of the biggest lessons I learned during this journey was that fluency is not built in one exciting day. It is built through hundreds of ordinary days when you decide not to quit. I still remember the morning I looked into the mirror and smiled because, for the first time, English didn't feel like a difficult school subject anymore. It felt like a friend walking beside me. I was brushing my teeth and naturally saying, I am brushing my teeth. Then I washed my face and said, I am ready for a new day. It wasn't a lesson from a textbook. It was simply my life, lived in English. That is the secret many learners never discover. Real progress happens during the small moments you usually ignore. While cooking dinner, describe what you're doing. While cleaning your room, name every object you touch. While walking outside, talk about the weather, the people, the trees, and the sky. Those little conversations may seem simple, but together they build something powerful. They build fluency that feels natural because it grows from your real life. One afternoon, I was sitting quietly in a park when a little boy pointed toward the clouds and happily said, Cloud. I smiled and answered, Yes, that's a cloud. Then I pointed toward a larger one and said, That cloud is very big. He laughed and repeated, Big cloud. His confidence amazed me. He wasn't worried about grammar. He wasn't afraid of making mistakes. He was simply enjoying the joy of speaking. At that moment, I realized something important. Children learn quickly because they are curious, not because they are perfect. They speak without fear. And that's exactly what we need to do as English learners. Don't treat English like a heavy burden you must carry. Treat it like a friend you meet every day. Play with new words. Smile when you discover new expressions. Laugh when you make funny mistakes. Every mistake is another step forward. Years ago, I kept telling myself, I'll start speaking when my English becomes perfect. But perfection never arrived because perfection keeps moving farther away the more you chase it. Everything changed the moment I stopped waiting and started speaking with the English I already had. That decision gave me freedom. I discovered that communication is much more important than perfection. People don't expect you to know every grammar rule. They simply want to understand your ideas and your feelings. Sometimes my viewers tell me they have nobody to practice with. I always smile because I know that feeling very well. Then I tell them something simple. You already have a practice partner. You have me. Pause this lesson whenever you want. Repeat every sentence after me. If I say, I am learning English, you say it too. If I say, I believe in myself, repeat those words with confidence. Even through a screen, Your mouth is learning, your ears are listening, and your confidence is growing stronger. Let's practice together one more time. Say slowly, I can do this. Wonderful. I can speak English. Excellent. Every day I become better. Perfect. I speak word by word. Beautiful. Can you feel the difference? Your voice already sounds stronger than when we started. That's because confidence grows every time you choose to speak. After months of daily practice, I noticed another exciting change. My pronunciation improved naturally. I wasn't forcing myself to copy someone else's accent. My mouth simply became comfortable producing English sounds because it practiced them every day. Sometimes I even spoke to my cup of tea, saying, "You're hot today." Other times I looked at my notebook and laughed, saying, "Let's fill these empty pages." It may sound funny, but every spoken sentence helped remove another layer of fear. I also learned that connecting words with actions made them much easier to remember. If I learned the word open, I opened a door and said open. If I learned the word close, I closed a book and repeated close. My body and my brain learned together. Even on difficult days, when I felt tired or discouraged, I remembered one simple sentence that carried me forward. One word is enough. If I couldn't practice for 30 minutes, I practiced for 2. If I couldn't say 10 sentences, I said 1. 1 is always better than 0. Little by little, English became part of who I was. At night, before sleeping, I whispered a few peaceful sentences to myself. I am thankful for today. I tried my best. I am improving every day. Those words reminded me that progress doesn't need to be dramatic to be meaningful. It simply needs to continue. One day, I joined a conversation with a friend who spoke English fluently. Months earlier, I would have stayed silent, but this time I shared my ideas without fear. My grammar wasn't perfect, and I still searched for a few words, but I kept speaking. When the conversation ended, my friend smiled and said, "Your confidence has grown so much." That compliment meant more than any test score because it proved something I had finally learned. Fluency is not about speaking without mistakes, it is about speaking without fear. So, before we finish today, I want us to make one final promise together. From this moment forward, we will speak English every single day. We will not wait until we feel perfect because that day will never come. We will use the words we already know. We will practice while walking, cooking, studying, relaxing, and dreaming. We will celebrate every small victory because every small victory leads to a big transformation. Close your eyes for a moment and repeat after me. I can speak English. Every word I speak makes me stronger. Every sentence I say brings me closer to fluency. I believe in myself, and I will never give up. Keep those words inside your heart because they are true. One day you'll look back at this moment and smile. You'll remember that everything started with one simple decision to speak one word, then another, then another. Word by word, day by day, your confidence grew, your voice became stronger, and English stopped being something you studied. It became part of your life. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep practicing with courage. Keep believing in yourself. And remember that I'll be here, lesson after lesson, encouraging you every step of the way until English becomes your second heartbeat. Keep speaking, keep smiling, and keep moving forward because your journey to fluency has only just begun.